Welcome to this presentation on Power Platform Fundamentals. My name is Kim and I'm part of what we call the Global Black Belt team here at Microsoft, where I serve as a liaison between the product engineering group, so people who build our product, and you, app makers and citizen developers who build solutions using the Power Platform. Over the next few hours, we will cover all the essentials for you to know which are the tools you have in the low-code toolbox that is the Power Platform and how you can make the best use of them. And during those few next hours, we're going to be talking about how we can use the Microsoft Power Platforms all up. We're going to learn the basic components. We're going to talk about the connectors and then how you can pull it all together. This is going to be our module 1. And then we're going to have more modules down the road to go deeper in Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. So, first lesson. What is the Power Platform? Well, at the core, the Power Platform is built on 4 products. There's Power BI that allows you to build dashboards and reports. There's Power Apps allowing you to build apps for your employees and portals for external users to your organization. Power Automate that allows you to automate so many things from API automation to robotic process automation. And Power Virtual Agents that allow you to build chatbots that are either transactional or Q&A based. All of those 4 products are built on 3 components. They are data connectors. Those data connectors offer you the possibility to build apps or workflows on almost anything on the web. Microsoft products like SharePoint Online, Excel, or SQL, but also non-Microsoft products like SAP or Salesforce or Dropbox. And then we have AI Builder that allows you to build low-code artificial intelligence just using drag and drop and uploading images to work with image detection, documents, doing OCR, also with predictions and natural language processing. The last component of those 3 is the Dataverse. The Dataverse allows you to build very sophisticated databases in one click that combines the power of Azure SQL, the Blob storage, and Cosmos DB in one single instance where you can model structured and unstructured data, put role-based access control, and build a relational database with different sources of data. So, to build and consume solutions for web and mobile apps, you can use Power Apps. So you can build highly customized text and role-based Canvas app with data from one or more multiple sources. So if you use lots of Excel spreadsheets and maybe PDF documents and SharePoint lists to do visits every week in stores, you can combine all those data sources in a single app and make your job much easier. But you can also generate immersive model-driven apps starting from your data and your model and your business processes from the Dataverse. They build those apps automatically just based on the relational database and all the data that is in your database. And also, you can consume fully accessible apps across web and mobile, embedded or standalone on any devices. So this is really a configure once, deploy everywhere approach that works on your phone, on your tablet, through the browser for your employees, but also for external users with Power Portals. Then, you can automate and integrate business processes with Power Automate. Power Automate and model business processes across your apps and services. So you can have a trigger in one place and actions in other places. You can build from simple automation to advanced scenarios with branches, loops, and much more. You can trigger action, grant approvals, and get notification right where you work. And you can automate legacy on-premises and cloud-based application or services. For instance, if you have an email that arrives in your inbox, you can create a new record in an old legacy system that has no APIs. So let's say you can have a purchase order, extract all the information from the different forms using OCR, and then write that with robotic process automation into an old SAP or Oracle system. Then, you can gain insight from your data regardless of where it lives with Power BI. So you can connect to all your data and get a consolidated view across your business through a single pane of glass on your mobile, your tablet, or through the web. You can create ad hoc analysis, live dashboards, and interactive reports that are easy to consume on the web and across mobile devices. You can build smart apps by infusing insights from your data and drive actions with the Microsoft Power Platform. So every time you build dashboards, you can make them available on your apps. Also, when you build a dashboard, you can put an app into that dashboard and then create digital feedback loops that will always keep your information updated wherever it's located. Then, you can build powerful virtual agents with, Microsoft Power Virtual Agents. You can enable subject matter expert to easily create powerful virtual agents using a guided, no-code graphical interface, all without the need for data scientists or developers. It enables the virtual agents to take actions on the customer's behalf, easily integrate your virtual agents with hundreds of services and systems out of the box or create custom workflows. You can keep an eye on how your virtual agents is performing by using a conversational metrics and dashboards. You can get in-depth AI-driven insights to improve your bot's performance. So regardless if you deploy those bots to your employees or to external users, you can gather so much more information on the sessions that went well and those maybe that could be improved, and then you're going to have smart recommendations on how you can make this happen. Finally, you can put all your data to work with the Dataverse. You can jumpstart apps using a standardized data model with business logic, security, and integration built in. You can extend your own needs and integrate across your apps and services. And this is seamlessly integrated with Dynamics 365, Office 365, and Azure to augment with data from industry partners. And this is where most of the magic happens for large-scale apps. Because the common data service comes with the common data model, every time that you have something that happens in your calendar, let's say an appointment, all that definition of an appointment is the same in your CRM and in your Dataverse. So you have no complex integration challenges whenever you want to make multiple systems talking together. So now let's dive into what you can do with custom connectors. Connectors are available for use in multiple products. Well, they're native to Power Automate and Power Apps, but you can also use the same connectors in Logic Apps. And then when you don't find what you need in the list of 450 and more connectors currently available out of the box, you can create a custom connector that has an advantage of building your custom connectors that can be used in different platforms such as Power Apps, Power Automate, or Azure Logic Apps. So if you have a connection for open data provider around travel in one industry and you want to connect that with weather from another industry, you can build custom connectors to those two sources, bring that information into your app, and then make a better travel assistant for your employees when they travel abroad. It allows you to extend your app by calling publicly available APIs or custom API you're hosting in a cloud provider such as Azure, but it also extends to AWS or Google Cloud Platform. So if you build lots of data assets outside of the Microsoft Cloud, well, you can still connect to them. And finally, you can create custom connectors using 3 different approaches. You can use a blank custom connector. You can start from an open API definition or from a Postman collection. So if you've already have those technologies deployed elsewhere using other API managers, for example, you can just take that Postman, open it into your custom connector in the Power Platform, and basically reuse the whole thing without having to rewrite the entire connector. Now, you have multiple data sources for those connectors. There's over 450 of them, in fact. But there's really 2 types of connectors that we see. The first one is tabular data. So a tabular data source is one that returns data in structured table formats. Most databases will use the same thing where you have columns and rows in relational databases. That is very easy to do. I want to get the views of my clients or my assets or my tasks and import that into a business process. But many of those connectors do not work with tabular data. They allow you to use a function-based data that is use functions to interact with your data source. So you can do some fetch, some read, write in different system, or take actions that are not necessarily returning tabular data. And then when you look at the different components of a connector, once you've established that data source, you have triggers and actions within your connector. For instance, if you look on the right of the screen here, we have a connector to Microsoft Forms. So you can create forms online to send to your clients. But if you're familiar with Forms, typically it will save all the responses into an Excel spreadsheet that is attached to it. But if you use Power Automate from the trigger of Form, say, hey, a new form has been received or a form has been filled, you can say, hey, every time that we get that, do the following actions. In this case, take the response details and then create an item or a row in your SharePoint list to get all the responses so we can be more people to actually have visibility on the different answers, and or take that data and move it somewhere else. So in this case, the trigger is when a new form is submitted, and the actions will be applied to each and get the responses details and enter that detail dynamically into my SharePoint list. And then you see there's a little mapping that has been done there where you can map the fields of your forms to the different columns of your SharePoint lists. Now, when it's time to build a more comprehensive solution, you'll need to be able to use the different components of the Power Platform together. And sometimes it will even go beyond the Power Platform itself. So how can you do that? Well, the Power Platform gives you an unmatched, a very flexible architecture. With low code, you typically start from the bottom layer, which is the data and services layer. In our case, we connect natively to Office 365. First of all, like things like Excel spreadsheet and SharePoint, but also we connect natively to Teams, and we connect natively to a whole lot of other services, part of Office 365. But not only that, we connect to Dynamics 365. So everything that is your opportunities, your contacts, your cases, you can connect natively to those as well. And then there's the native connectors to Azure. The most important one, in my opinion, is the native integration with Azure Active Directory, which allows you to manage identity at scale for all of your users natively. That is typically super hard to do with any other local platform, but we're natively built around those same principles. But only with Azure's, you don't only have the Active Directory, you also have Azure SQL and many components of the cognitive services like AI, machine learning capabilities that you might have already built somewhere, and you want to make them available to more makers and more citizen developers. So we have all those connections natively. But sometimes your data is not in the cloud. It might be on an on-premises database, rightfully so. And sometimes it's hard to move those things. It's an entire projects. So if you have master data for all your parts or all your clients that lives in legacy systems, you still need to connect to them. We have for that the on-premises data gateway. If your organization already uses Power BI, you probably have gateways deployed in different data sources that you can also now reuse with apps or workflows. And if you need to build something new and you need a relational database with encryption, role-based access control, relational databases that can also use virtual entities to other databases outside of it, and then that can be used with your apps, your workflows, and maybe other tools in the organization, the Dataverse is the best tool to do that. Most of the time when you have an idea for an app, you start with the app and then you go see the database people say, hey, I need a SQL database. And a week later, you got to have your database. And then you still have to work hard to model your data and to build your model and to build security roles. And how are you going to share this? All of that is made in a single click thanks to the Dataverse. You can do it yourself It will spawn everything you need, SQL databases, Cosmos DB, in the cloud, and then you can easily build your app on top of that. But let's say your idea needs something that doesn't fit in any of those 5 categories in terms of a data source. Well, you have over 450 connectors, and you can connect to multiple solutions: Adobe, Zendesk, SAP, Marketo, Box, Salesforce. There's too many to mention in this call, but you can have tabular data for certain systems or actions in other systems to build apps or automation. This is typically where you want to start your low-code project at the data layer, so then you can put all the business rules, all the security, so then whenever or wherever you're going to be interacting with that data, you will always be compliant to your company policies. So once you have your data covered, the next logical step is to say, hey, we need to automate stuff. And to automate stuff with the Power Platform, you have so much tools that each of them will always allow you to automate anything. And that starts with Power Automate Desktop, which is robotic process automation. Many systems today, even in large organizations, are still old green screen terminals. And it's hard to have API to those things. It costs a lot, or sometimes it's just simply not possible. So how can we make a robot simulate the interaction a human would have? Well, you do that with RPA, or robotic process automation. But RPA alone doesn't do everything, because how can you mix tasks merging from API automation, things like an email, and things like maybe an ERP that exists only with UI interfaces? This is where Power Automate Flows, or Cloud Flows, will allow you to do that. So leverage those 400 something connectors plus RPA when you need to build a through end-to-end process. But now automation becomes more and more sophisticated. Sometimes you need to add artificial intelligence in the mix. So let's say I received an email in my inbox, which is great. Then I can extract that email using API. That email maybe has a purchase order, which is a PDF. Wouldn't it be nice if I can take all the information in PDF and automatically enter that into my ordering system? This is where things like AI Builder come very useful. It will use optical character recognition and a trained model for your purchase order, so it knows that this is the supplier, this is the project code, this is the PO number, and each rows and columns of the PO can be extracted, then structured into a flow that will then write that back into my ordering system or my invoicing system that might not have an API using RPA in this case. This is what intelligent automation or hyper automation is beginning to look like. And everything that has a process, most of the time, will have some sort of approvals attached to it. Well, we have Microsoft approvals. So instead of having to approve things by emails or in each individual system day after day, you can centralize all those approvals into a very neat app called Microsoft Teams. So as a manager, if I want to approve a discount for sales, but also approve vacations for my employees and expenses, why would I have to go into 3 different systems to do that, where everything can use approvals, be surfaced through Teams and email if I want, and I can in very simple clicks say yes, no, and then Flow will take care of the rest. Finally, many processes that we've discussed so far are fairly simple triggers and actions. Most of those things are part of steps of a larger process. We call this business process management. So let's say you have an employee onboarding process, say, hey, he has accepted our offer. Now he needs to have a security badge. He needs to have a PC. He needs to have a company car. All that big process, multiple stages, will require multiple steps at each stages. That some of those steps might be manual data entry, but some of those will be automation. So to be able to orchestrate all those multi-step processes, a BPM solution like the Microsoft Business Process Flows will allow you to do that. Now, we have lots of work done with our data, tremendous amount of work done with automation. Well, the last step is, how do we interact with all of that good stuff? Well, this is where the variety of user experiences brought not only by the Power Platform, but wherever the Power Platform lives is super powerful. So we start with rich mobile applications, so apps that will run on your mobile as an employee to do your expenses. But sometimes these will be apps that are embedded in Microsoft Teams or maybe your CRM or other things. And in some cases, when you have a new employee onboarding process or a new supplier, you will need to interact with external users to your organization. This is where the secured web portals will help you to do that. And it will write everything back into the same system that your internal users can use. But it goes much beyond that. Mixed reality can be put in a single click in any app you build. Until today, having mixed reality anywhere required video games developers that would rather work at Ubisoft or Warner than work in any other organizations that is not a video game company. But now, because Power Apps allows you to include those experiences in Power Apps, like mixed reality in volumes and see objects and take measurements, it's super easy to do. Now, when it's time to interact with your data, many complex processes would be better in natural language. If you have more than 20 or 30 filters to actually get to an answer, with different, interrelated drop-down menus and everything to give you like, hey, this is how many days of vacation you have if you're pregnant with your first child in that country, right? HR processes are always very complicated. So what if you can take artificial intelligence and build Q&A bots that can do that? So you say, hey, I'm 30 years old, I'm pregnant, and I want to have how many days of parental leave I'm allowed to in my country in an international company. This answer will vary on many factors. But not only that, if you have the answer, wouldn't it be nice if you can just say, hey, book my vacations? And then that chatbot becomes transactional. So then it can say, hey, congratulations on your first child. Which days would you like to take? And you can just continue the same conversation with full context with a chatbot that will do that transaction for you in your HR system. Or maybe for your client into a case management system. After a few Q&As, people can create new cases with chat. And all that data that is created by your employees and your client, you can visualize it with Power BI and have those very comprehensive dashboards connected to all those various data sources. And you can change that information on the fly from within the dashboard if you embed a Power Apps in it. And the beauty of the Power Platform is that on its own, it's already a great tool. We have apps, automation, chatbots, and all that good stuff. But people work and live outside of this single app or outside of this single chatbot. They use Teams, they use their CRM, they use Outlook, they use Excel, or they use Microsoft Projects. So many capabilities of the Power Platform are made available as standard features of those products. So if you create an approval workflow, it can be triggered automatically from your CRM if it's a discount you want for a client. Or if you're in Microsoft Excel and you have a list of attendees of an event, you can select that list and just click on a button, use the flow, send an email to send an invite. And then when you're in Teams, there's actually a whole lot you can do in Teams now. You can build apps without leaving Teams. You can build chatbots without leaving Teams. You can use all of those things without even leaving Microsoft Teams. So really those Power Platform components, when they bring them all together, allow your employees to save tons of time, not only creating apps and processes, but most importantly, making them available to a wider set of people in your organization through Microsoft Teams, through SharePoint, or through your Microsoft Dynamics 365. So, what have we seen so far? We saw that the Microsoft Power Platform helped you to add value to any business by analyzing, acting, and automating. You can build custom apps in Power Apps, you can automate processes with Power Automate, and you can analyze the data with Power BI. You can build powerful chatbots with virtual agents. So in summary, the Microsoft Power Platform offers a point-and-click approach, which makes it easy for anyone familiar with Microsoft Office to create custom business solution, data visualizations, and automated workflows. It enables users to do 3 key actions on data that help them drive business by gaining insight from data, drive intelligent processes, and automate business processes. Where Power BI help you analyze and visualize data, you got Power Apps that help you build and deploy apps, and connectors to bridge gaps between your multiple systems, and finally Power Automate to create workflow for simple to advanced workflows. So I hope that this was a very good introduction for you about all the good stuff you can do with the Power Platform. Now, this is the end of our first module. In the next module, we're going to be able to build together our first app in Power Apps, and then we're going to see the different versions of apps that you can use in your organization. See you in a minute. Now it's time for our second lesson about the Power Apps and the Dataverse. We also call Common Data Service. This is one of my favorite features in the old platform that allows you to secure your data, but make it available at scale very easily. So in this module, we're going to cover what is Power Apps and the business value it creates. We're going to learn how one of the world's largest airports is digitizing its processes using Power Apps. And then we're going to discover the Dataverse. We're going to explain what are environments and tables and columns and relationships, but also describe the differences between the Dataverse and the common data model. And finally, we will explain use cases and limitations of business rules and process flows. So let's get started. First of all, what is Power Apps? Well, Power Apps is a powerful tool for productivity, and it allows you to develop low-code applications and forms to enhance your productivity with Power Apps. It integrates and shares apps across workflows with Microsoft Teams, but also it allows you to collect, manage, and distribute content and data using SharePoint, Microsoft Form, Excel, and many more tools. And the low-code backend with that is the Dataverse. And you're going to hear me use Dataverse and CDS interchangeably. I'm referring to the same thing. Sometimes we change names of products at Microsoft, and old people like me stay with the old names. So if you hear me say Dataverse or Common Data Service or CDS, it's the same thing. Now, with the Dataverse, you can jumpstart your apps using an extensible data model with business logic, security, and integration built in. It enables AI through built-in cognitive services with AI Builder and Azure. You can extend data and processes to external and anonymous users using the Power Portals, but also you can support all your data, relational, files, blob storage, log, and search for indexing. And finally, it's effortlessly built on top of Dynamics, Office 365, and Azure, as well as powerful integration capabilities. Basically, the way I like to explain what Dataverse is if a SQL database ever met SharePoint online and decided to have the best database ever together, that would be the Dataverse. Because it's as easy to build as a SharePoint list, but as powerful as a SQL database. And we added extra functionalities with the blob storage for file handling, but also Cosmos DB for auditing, all of that built in. And like I said in the first version, you can deploy all of that in a single click. But now, what are the different types of apps for different scenarios? Well, Power Apps create 3 types of apps. There's Canvas apps that allows you to have a blank page and make it very engaging, task-focused experiences for your end users. Then there are model-driven apps that allows you to build very comprehensive, sophisticated part of a business process, sometimes well adapted for back office users, part of the same scenario. For instance, if you have field agents that do surveys and report or fix things when they are on location, they might use a Canvas app. because it's very task driven. When they're completed, all the back office user use a model-driven app where they can work with multiple records of a single employee or across multiple employees to have an idea of productivity, new cases that were not closed today. So that is usually better served with a model-driven app. And at any point in time, if you want to share part of your process with an external users, you do that through Power Portals. So those users will be able to log into your portal with identity management at the core and upload documents, change values, and be part of your process. So this is where the Canvas apps are a great option when you want to build an app from blank. And then you can start by choosing the screen size, tablet, is it mobile? Although now we have more and more reflowing apps that we call responsive design that are also now powered natively of the Power Platform, even using Canvas apps. And then you can interact with your data in your app by adding data sources, drag and drop various controls, and add the desired functionality by writing Excel-style formulas. And then Canvas app will provide you the complete flexibility when building your app. What does that mean is that you can connect a single app to multiple data sources. On one end, maybe you have a whole list of features or products in an Excel spreadsheet, and on the other end, you have all your client data in your CRM. You can bring those two things together in a single app using a Canvas app. You can make it look very, very specific to your company branding and or make a very focused task centric UI for your agent. You can choose between phone or tablet. It also works on the web, but now we have responsive design apps that you can build right out of the gate. So then we have another type of app called model-driven apps. So those model-driven apps are built from the data in the Dataverse. And this is important. A model-driven app will not work on anything else but the Dataverse. And then the Power App will build you a great looking, fully functional app to act upon and interact with this data. With model-driven apps, there is no need to worry about choosing the app size. It is responsive completely by default. So it will work both on mobile, tablets with no extra work by you. You can define the relationships, the forms, the views, the business processes, and everything lives inside the Dataverse. So it gives you enough control to get your business results without writing all the formulas yourself. In a nutshell, once you build your Dataverse or your CDS, you will start to build tables. Those tables will have columns and rows, and that data will be relational. And then you'll start to build forms within the Dataverse, and then maybe business rules to say, hey, if that value is set to this, create that action in the field. All of those things are built at the data layer. And then building the app, you just have a few clicks and the visual experience will be built automatically for you. And one thing that the model-driven apps do very well is that it has richer UI elements for admins or back office user. You have buttons to export to Excel, to create a Word document automatically out of data you see in front of you. This is a little different from how a Canvas app will behave. So the combination of the two is very, very powerful. And then we have portals. So portals brings the power of no-code solutions to build externally facing websites. Through the Power App interface, you can build an anonymous or authenticated website that allows users to interact with data held in Dataverse. It's the same drag and drop experience that you would enjoy when building apps, but it's now available to build rich interactive websites. And there's lots of templates already built in. So if you want to have pages that are more for information, let's say FAQ, it's already there. And then when you want to switch to a more like, hey, I sign in with your Google account or your Microsoft account or with LinkedIn, click here to sign in. This is your own dedicated area where you can create a new case, or you can follow progress on a request that you've placed through that website, or maybe through the phone call, and then you can see that data because it's all connected together with the Dataverse. So again, portals will only work with Dataverse. They don't work on anything else. And you can make view pages or informational pages and also authenticated pages with information specific to the actual client that is logged in. Now, you can add artificial intelligence to your app without a single line of code, because Power Apps has democratized artificial intelligence by providing a wizard-based interface for building and training your model. It unlocks the power of the Azure machine learning and cognitive services without writing a single line of code or creating complex machine learning models. Currently, we have 4 AI model families with AI Builder. So you have prediction that helps you predict if something's going to happen. You have forms processor that will extract information from a PDF or a JPEG. You have an object detector that will look at an image and identify, hey, this is a bicycle or this is product ABC. And then you have text classification that categorizes and understands meaning in most of the time natural language. And this AI Builder capability is very important because not only it lives within Power Apps, you have a button to say, hey, I want to scan a business card and extract the information of the business card and create a new contact into my CRM. You also have receipt processing. Again, we use forms processing or optical character recognition that understand not only the data, but the context of the data, and then can map those information in the right database. So those AI models can be shared with Power Apps, but also with Power Automate. So it can automate things as part of a process or as part of a manual intervention. So the more you're going to start using the Power Platform in your organization, the more you'll start to be aware of security and administration principles. Because as soon as you start to build enterprise level solutions that go much beyond what you can do with SharePoint or Microsoft Teams, you want to have databases with true role-based access control so the users only see what they're allowed to see. You want to have your data encrypted. You want to be able to control how people will use different connectors, not every time you build an app, but at the environment level or at the tenant level. Those principles are what makes the Power Platform an enterprise-grade solution, because without them, you will be unable to control the flow of information in and out of your organization. So to manage security for Power Apps, you can access the Power Platform Admin Center. We love to call it PPAC at Microsoft. So if you hear any of our MVPs or experts at Microsoft talking about PPAC, it's PPAC, Power Platform Admin Center. Is just we love acronyms at Microsoft. But once you're there, you'll have the options for creating and managing environments, monitoring license usage, working with data loss prevention policies, and managing the Dataverse data integration projects. It will allow you to manage the Power Apps, the Power Apps through your tenant from a single place. And if we look at the screen on the left, this is an example of the role-based access control that is associated with what we call the security roles for the Common Data Service or for the Dataverse. So then you can say that specific user can see new accounts, but can only create accounts for himself. He cannot delete any accounts. Or if we're talking about activities, maybe he'll be only able to see his own appointments and not his appointments of his colleagues. But maybe if he leaves on vacation, maybe he wants to share his appointments with his clients with a colleague. So then we have those share, assign features that goes much beyond a simple create, read, update, and delete. Because it's a relational database around collaboration and productivity, our security roles or role-based access control principles are baked in. And if you are an administrator of Azure Active Directory, the beauty is you can have those roles map to the Azure security groups you have in Active Directory. So if all managers are already there, you don't have to assign every manager the same role. They will inherit that role as soon as they are a member of that environment. And on the other end of the slide, you see there that we talk about the data loss prevention policies. And that DLP allows you to say, hey, these are the connectors that we allow our citizen developers and our app makers to put into their app. And this is another bucket where we won't allow them to share business data with them. So you can create a firewall between, hey, I'm going to allow you to connect to Google Drive because maybe you store your images there that are somewhat related or low security, but I will not allow you to take information from our CRM and send them by email using Google or using anything else. Maybe in your organization, you don't want them to use any Google connector at all, then you can block them. So we have those three buckets of business data that can work together, another bucket of no business data that cannot talk to the other thing, but still can be used. And then we have the third bucket, which is blocked. We're not going to go too deep into the admin because we have specific workshops for those. But again, this is what makes the Power Platform an enterprise-grade product. So let's see what Sumit Saini has created at Heathrow Airport with the Power Apps.
I don't just want to make a living. I want to make a difference. When I left school at 16, my dad was working in Heathrow at the time, and this opportunity came up as becoming a security officer. I thought, what a great opportunity, my dad used to take me here to watch seaplanes and everything. So why not work for a company or an airport like Heathrow? I've been a security officer for 13 years. When I saw the amount of paper and time we were spending, I saw an app would be a great solution for these problems to be solved. About a year ago, I started learning about the Microsoft programs. I went home and I looked at a blog from Power Apps, and it said, this is how you can build an app. And I thought, why didn't no one know this? Because this could have so much potential to change so many things. We have saved 11,000 sheets of paper and saved around 288 hours of manual input data. Going from paper to digital has been amazing. It doesn't matter what your skill levels are like, anybody can build this app.
Him with his community of super users have created 17 Power Apps that are already being used across our airport, and this is just the tip of the iceberg.
My name is Sumit Saini, and I'm a IT user adoption specialist at Heathrow. There's no limit of what you can create with new technology. I'll create a new career.
It's amazing to see how Sumit went from a security officer at an airport, go home at night, look at a problem. He lives every day around security at the airport to help people flow better, to catch their plane. And then a few months later, leads the entire Power Platform team at Heathrow. It's an amazing journey, and many of you will probably follow similar path. And I know for a fact that many of you already did, because I have had conversation with some of our people following this PL-900 fundamental workshops, telling me similar stories. This is always amazing. So now, let's work together around what is the Dataverse. Under the hood of the Dataverse, everything runs around different APIs. So you can connect to it natively with Power Apps and Power Automate and AI Builder, but also through every other kind of tools we might have, like Xamarin and Visual Studio, but also non-Microsoft solutions. The Dataverse is an encrypted database at the core, but it has an API. So again, it's native connectors to everything Power Platform. It's transparent. You don't even know there's an API. But if you want to use the Dataverse in other places of your organization, you can. So when we look at every layer of the Dataverse, we have security at the core. That will always be there regardless if you connect to it with a Power App or Flow or a Xamarin app or through a portal. We have authentication that uses Azure Active Directory, authorization with role-based access control, and auditing, so you can activate auditing on changes that happens to records stored in your Dataverse and keep track of everything that happened. And the good thing with that auditing, if you're in a GDPR compliant organization, is that we move those logs or those audit logs to the Office 365 Compliance Center. So we do not add a new layer of complexity for you to stay compliant. We're able to expose all that data with the tools you already use every day to stay compliant, especially in areas where GDPR is still a thing. Now, there's a very good layer of logic capabilities that comes with that as well. You can schedule jobs to update or to delete records. You can add calculated and roll up fields to do maths. You can have business rules that will do validation on certain values and not allow you to derive from that business rule. You have plugins that you can inject code to do specific tasks. And there's also duplicate detection and workflows to help you work with your data. And the reason why this is important is that in a world where you have app makers and citizen developers, lots of decentralized things will happen. And the challenge with citizen development is that if they're not technically skilled enough, they will not be able to implement all those rules within the app itself when it's time to make it, right? Having complex filter and business logic at the app layer requires skills and time. So if you put all those rules at the data layer, then they cannot be violated in any other ways. They will always be compliant. So what it does is it saves you tons of time when it's time to build an app or an automation, and you can sleep at night knowing that it will remain compliant. So by having all those rules and security at the data layer saves you from lots of nightmare that citizen development and low code have brought in the past using other technologies. Then we have logic, we have security, but there's a good data capability in that dataverse. Starting with catalog and discovery, you can very well store different types of data and find it very easily. You have data modeling, so it's a true relational database. There's included reporting on the usage of your database and the API calls it has, and the kind of every record that are created by category and everything, so you can monitor the usage of your database to a very granular extent. There's data validation to make sure that the data you put in there stays clean. And also we have a thing called the common data model that standardizes all the ways or the definition or the schema of common elements that are shared across Microsoft. I mentioned in the first lesson where, hey, if you have an appointment in your Outlook and you want to make it a copy of that appointment in your, let's say, site visits, right? Making a mapping between appointments and appointments sometimes can take time, or between an account in your a contact in your Outlook and a contact in your CRM. So Microsoft, we've defined a common data model that we're going to talk about a bit later on, but that common data model really helps you to just simply work because we have a common definition of what a contact, an appointment can look like. We have over 80 some entities that are part of that common data model to help you accelerate your time to value without having to think of it every time you build a new database. Then, from a storage perspective, we have this relational database capability. Mainly, it's a bunch of SQL Elastic pools that we have there that scale to your needs all the time. But while SQL is great for structured data, it's not great at managing files. So we have Azure Blob Storage in the mix to help you manage images and documents. And this auditing of information changes are stored in a log that uses Azure Cosmos DB. And then you can have semi-structured data that can be mapped together. So you can have that record about, hey, we have an intervention that we've done. And here are all the pictures in context in the same search. And this is why it's becoming more and more easy to search and find data using relevance search. So it's AI embedded capabilities. And we have a native export to data lakes. So if you gather lots of data into your Dataverse for operational transactional data that you have every day, you want to be able to put that easily into a data lake using Azure Synapse, where in the grand scheme of things, in your data lake may be mixed with IoT data. You want to have like a broader perspective. That integration is native. And finally, we have lots of other types of integration with eventing and webhooks and data exports, where you can connect all of those things together to feed information from IoT devices that you have in the field. And if there's an alert, there's eventing, and then you can act on it directly from your database. Also, sometimes you will have to use ETLs to export data in a CSV file and move that to another system that doesn't have an API, but that has an upsert capability with CSV files. All of those capabilities are native to the Dataverse. Now, the Dataverse is the database storing a set of standard and custom data structure called tables. You heard me talk about relational databases and the common data model. The common data model is the other side of the equation, where the common data model is a set of open source and standardized extensible data tables and relationships. What does that mean? So we provide you the database. And in that database, we've already included part of what we call the common data model. Every time you will launch a new Dataverse, you will have accounts, contacts, activities, and stuff like that. And they will all be built with the right relation among them, but also the right definition to work with other Microsoft products. But you're not limited to those. You can create new tables very easily that connect to those accounts and contacts, or not at all. So if you have things like buildings and floors and rooms to do asset management, you can easily build, model those, and secure those at the same level that you would do with everything that is in there. And so the Dataverse is the database and the services around it, and the common data model is the definition of many of those components within the Dataverse. And the way it looks like, you can have all that schema that is coming built in, and you can share that single database or that single data model with multiple apps. So you can have the first app that is for cleaning your building, but the other app can be about assessing all the assets that you have. They don't have to rely on two different databases. They can take the same data from the same Dataverse, using the same data model that is either part of the common data model or your custom model, but then it can have different experiences for those that are cleaning the building and for those that are actually ordering and repairing assets like chairs and tables and windows in your building. So this is where the Dataverse is very powerful, because when it's at the middle of so many use cases, it makes those much easier to build, much faster to get value out of. There's also other data integration capabilities that are built into the Dataverse. You can use Power Query. It's something that you use with Excel. It works exactly the same in the Dataverse. There's built-in management tools like the common data model table. You can map the UX to environments, and you can have scheduled refresh. You have 300 ways you can transform or clean or reshape data, part of Power Queries. And you can reuse data models across end-user experiences from Power Apps and other frontends like Power BI. So when you build those queries or you integrate with that data, using Power Queries or data flows or even T-SQL, there's always multiple ways to get information in and out of your CRM by remaining compliant without completely exploding the model that is in it. So when we look at the different tables, we have standard tables that is part of the common data model that are created for every instances, like I mentioned earlier, everything that goes from accounts, contacts, activities, and many others. And then you can create your own tables to say your buildings, your floors, and assets. And each of those tables will have columns or fields. So you can store discrete pieces of information within a record of a table. So the definition of a building, maybe you'll need the GPS location, the year it was built, the insurance number, or whatever. And every column will have a type that defines the way you store the data. So you can have date columns, you can have choices, you can have free text, auto-calculated fields. So these are two of the key components around tables and columns in the Dataverse. And then this is a relational database. And this is where it's oftentimes where you're going to switch between doing things with SharePoint in a certain way. And SharePoint and Excel are great for a single table database. Using with a Power Platform, it's easy to build an app on them. But sometimes you need that relation that is parental and cascading between your building, your floors, and your assets, or from your territory to your clients to your salespeople. This is hard to map in an Excel spreadsheet or with a SharePoint site, and do that with security in mind. And again, the role-based access control principles that we have. So those relationships will represent the way that tables are connected to one another. So a parent and a child are a very good, simple definition of many relationships. So you have an invoice that can be the parent table, and then you can have each line items of that invoice will be a child items. It can be the same thing with an account and a contact, or a project and tasks. All of those things are one-to-many relationships. But in some cases, you will have many-to-many relationships. For instance, a contact can attend multiple events, and an event can have many contacts that attend to it. So this way you can have many-to-many relationships that gives you the flexibility to have your record flows in multiple places without creating duplicates. Now, once we've worked with the database, sometimes it will be good for a certain use case, but maybe it won't be good for another use case. So if I have like a very sales-oriented database, maybe it won't make sense to have a very support tasks perspective in the same database. This will require two different databases. And this is where we start to have the notion of environments, because not only maybe the database doesn't make sense to be in a unique view, but sometimes it's not going to be the same people using that database or even those apps or those workflows. So we have a notion of what we call environments. And environments are used to store, manage, and share your organization's business data, apps, and flows in Microsoft Power Platform. Each environment allows you to provision one Dataverse database for use with that environment. And Dataverse environments allow you to manage user access, security settings, and the storage that is associated with that database. Each environment is created under a Microsoft Azure Active Directory tenant, and its resources can only be accessed by a user within that tenant. An environment is also bound to geographic location, like the US. So when you create a Dataverse database in an environment, that database is created within a data center in that geographic location. What we mean by that is that, let's say you have your company established in Europe, which is where I am right now physically. And you have salespeople in the US, you have field people in the US, you also have salespeople in Europe, and service people in Europe, and salespeople in Asia, and service people over there as well. And sometimes it will make sense to say, hey, you know what? Because of compliance or regulatory reasons in a certain country, all our data must be physically in that other country that is outside of our headquarters. Also, you might want to do that for latency issue. You want to have the database closest to your end users to make the experience better. So even if your company has headquartered in Europe, when you create a new environment, you can choose to make that environment physically in other location. And there's many you can choose from, either at a full time zone level or at a very specific level for a country, or if you work with separate governments, you need like a trusted environment for government cloud, you can do that as well. And once you've created an environment, you can also choose who will have access to those environments. So my salespeople from the US will be in the US environment. They have no business in being in my Asian environment. So you can segregate that very specifically. So this is the geographical aspect of your environment. But also, even if you're in the same geographical environment, you can say, hey, would it make sense to have my HR very highly safe, secured information here and only have HR people with performance metrics and everything in there, but have other production environments for sales and customer service and whatnot? You can absolutely do that as well. So your tenant, which is your company with your email.com, can have multiple environments associated to it in different geographic reasons for different business requirements. And thirdly, for also managing what we call application lifecycle management. So maybe you want to have your development environment with only your developers, and then maybe a UAT environment for your testers to make sure that it works, and then a production environment when your app is ready to go to prod. So environment are very good at geographical requirements, either regulatory or just for latency issues. For business reasons, because maybe your HR, your marketing, and your production people has to be different in different bubbles, and or to have a proper CI/CD ALM strategy for deploying your app from dev to UAT to prod. Now, remember when I mentioned in your Dataverse, you can have business rules. Those business rules allow for the application of business logic at the data layer instead of the app layer. Like I said, so it saves you tons of time and make sure that you stay compliant. Those business rules are applicable at the Dataverse level. So each instance of your Dataverse might have different business rules. And that would make perfect sense if your HR department have different business rules than your marketing department. Then it's usually defined for a table and applied to all forms, but can also be defined for a specific model-driven form. So you can use the same form when we talk about model-driven app for your front office user and your back office users. And based on the security role they have or the role, the form they use, the business logic can be different. And that would make sense. Maybe some users can see the social security number, some other cannot. You can manage that with field level security and or business rules as well. So an example of a business rule can use set column values, clear custom column values, or validate data and show error messages. So you set a trigger and a series of actions, just like you would build almost like a workflow. And then this information will happen in real time in front of your users without even having them having to save their record. We mentioned PPAC, the Power Platform Admin Center. This is what it could look like if you look on the right. It's only one screen among many, but the Power Platform Admin Center is where most of the administration settings that you'll need are available for you to use. So you should always check for administration settings as your first step when looking to administer Dataverse. So if you're the admin in your organization, before starting to build an app, you go there and look at the different metrics, because this will be important to set the boundaries of your organization around environment strategy, data loss prevention policy, role-based access control, and also just control the different features of the products and what feature you want to enable or inhibit for your makers and your users. So settings are grouped into the following broad categories and are accessible by selecting the link on the left-hand side of the portal as shown in the following figure. So from the left, you have environments. This section lists all the instances of Dataverse. And if your organization also uses Dynamics 365 for customer engagement, so our CRM, it will also show up there. The reason being is that Dynamics 365 for customer engagement is actually built on top of the Power Platform. It uses the Dataverse and model-driven apps and Power Automate. It uses the same concept and can be managed at the same place. So if your organization is already mature with Dynamics 365, you know all that stuff already. Then you have analytics that will show your resources that are being used in your environment. You have resources that you can view and assign capacity to your environment. We have features in the Power Platform that are assigned to users, specifically like Power Apps per user, Power Automate per users. But you also have capacity at the environment level. Let's say Power Apps per app. You also have Power Automate per flow, or unattended robotic process automation. All of those capabilities can be managed to assign more capacity in one environment over another. Then you have everything around data integration. This is the section that lets you create or add predefined connections and monitor these connections between the Dataverse and other data stores like Salesforce or SQL Server. So when you create those flow of information between multiple systems, this is where you'll be able to manage that connection and see how many information passes through. And finally, you have everything about the data policies. And I would say the first time you launch a Power Platform initiative in your organization, you go to PPAC and then you go to the data policies, because your users right now can already build apps in the context of Office 365, and they already have access to all the standard connectors. And you want to make sure that they can only use the connectors you're comfortable with in your organization. So building that data loss prevention policy as a first action, it's super important. So in summary, what we've seen so far is that Microsoft Power Apps allows users of any technical level to improve business processes. These apps are built using your existing skills and knowledge and without writing traditional managed code. These apps offer the ability to create highly flexible solutions built for different devices and consume data from a multitude of sources. So Power Apps is a no-code, low-code platform that allows you to build apps with your business knowledge and existing skills. It has different offerings to meet your needs, like Canvas app, model-driven apps, and portals, and each have their own unique properties. It also helps you build and deploy customized apps that work across web, mobile, or embedded and standalone on any device. You can build apps that follow your business processes instead of making your business processes follow the software. And then there's the Dataverse, which is a cloud-based data storage, which allows you to leverage the security and connectivity of Microsoft programs. The Dataverse connects easily to all aspects of the Microsoft Power Platform, so you can fully control, automate, and strengthen your business. With standard tables and columns, as well as the ability to easily define relationship between your data, the Dataverse was built for those who need powerful, scalable solution. The Dataverse uses standard tables, columns, and relationships to help you to build powerful, scalable data solutions while making your data work for you so that you can get the most of it by splitting it up into logical chunks. And finally, using the Dataverse, you can break your data into various environments to better manage and secure important information. So I think for most people that are starting with the Microsoft Power Platform, typically it's going to be, oh, I'm using a SharePoint list here and I can do a custom form over SharePoint, which is amazing. This is probably the easiest place to start. Or do very simple workflows saying, hey, when I receive an email coming from my manager and he sounds angry, he just sends me a text just to make sure I can reply quickly. All of those things are what so many people have created. But then when the need becomes a little more specific, because you have to handle sensitive information, you need to have a broader security. You need to have more people being able to do more with larger data sets and more sophisticated data sets. This is where Power Apps on top of Dataverse is actually a much more powerful solution. And the beauty is when it's time to build a Dataverse, you don't need to have a data analyst and ask very smart people to provide databases and do advanced queries and everything. We take care of all of that for you. So whenever you feel that a need goes beyond the abilities of an Excel spreadsheet or SharePoint, this is where the Dataverse and Power Apps will really enable you to build your best solution. So I hope you've learned a lot on the combination of those two things, and stay online. We have the other module and we're going to build an app together. See ya. And now it is time to start building our first Power Apps. So remember, what we've seen so far in the first two modules. Power Platform allows you to build apps, automation, BI, and chatbots. When you build apps, we saw in the last module, you can build them on the Common Data Service or the Dataverse. And that allows you to build enterprise-grade applications. But the first app that you might build might not require such an extensive role-based access control or relational database. Maybe you want to start from something simple like an Excel spreadsheet or a SharePoint site. This is exactly what we're about to do. And just get started. So the first thing that we want to talk about is what are the different components of the Power Apps as a maker? So we saw the different types of apps, but now it is time to look at how do we build an app. And for that, in this module, we're going to cover how to build an app, learn the basic elements. We're going to build the app together and help you get started with basic functions so you can have your app do pretty cool stuff. So, how do we build an app with Power Apps? The first thing you have to do is understand where you can build those apps from. You can start from extending Office 365 and Dynamics 365. This is very easy, and most of the time you have all it needs in those licenses to connect to your CRM or to connect to your SharePoint list and Excel spreadsheets and whatnot. But you can also extend legacy applications. So if you do use SAP or Oracle, even on premises, you can build apps to give your end user a more modern experience. You can build departmental solutions. So if you have your marketing team with specific needs, your HR teams with specific needs, you can cater for those needs with a Power App. And then you can build mission critical end-to-end solutions that needs to work, because if they fail, either somebody get hurt or there's a loss of money, and in some cases, maybe both. So this is what Power Apps allow you to build. The first thing is that you can start very quickly. You can empower your team to start building and launching apps right away using pre-built templates, drag and drop simplicity, and quick deployment, then roll out continuous improvements as needed. It's easy for them to build an app directly in a SharePoint list or build an app directly in Dynamics. They can start with something very simple, just let's say account management, but then if they need further requirements down the road, it's easy to bring them in. Then you can build apps without compromises. You can give everyone the power to build the apps they need with advanced functionality previously only available to professional developers, including pre-built AI components, but also things like mixed reality and also GPS location and camera control, NFC. Finally, you can enable the extensibility for developers. You can provide professional developers the tools to seamlessly extend app capabilities with Azure functions and custom connectors to proprietary or on-premises system. All of those things mean that while citizen developers or app maker can build stuff that are fairly simple in their business needs, whenever you need to have a more robust component or connect to very specific data sources, your pro developers can provide those components to your citizen developer, or you can build fusion teams where the app maker will work in the Power App Studio, but your pro developers work in their Visual Studio and or VS Code. So there's a no-cliff approach. You can stay with the Power Platform as long as the app lives, and you don't have to throw it away once you want something a little more sophisticated. So build the right app for the job. You can empower everyone to build apps, because building app with Power Apps helps everyone from business analysts to professional developers to work more efficiently together. You can solve business problems with intuitive visual tools that don't require code, work faster with a platform that enables data integration and distribution, and extend the platform with building blocks for professional developers. And you can easily build and share apps on any device. So again, your business users are the closest to the problem, so you want to give them tools to at least solve the fast and easy things that to be solved. And there's thousands of those examples in every organization. And then you can bring those pro developers to augment those apps without leaving the platform. So everything has, again, a no-cliff approach. And then Power Apps will enable a broad range of app scenarios to be created that infuse digital transformation into manual and outdated processes. You can use both Canvas and model-driven apps to build Power Apps that solve business problems for tasks and role-specific scenarios like inspection, field sales enablement, prospect to cash, and integrated marketing views. Remember in the first modules when we said Canvas apps are very task-focused for field workers, but the model-driven app allow you to work with more records for more people with multi-select and reports. So you can really build sophisticated scenarios using the different building blocks of Power Apps. And then those applications can be very tailored to your needs. You can start by designing your user experience on the Power App canvas, customize every detail of your app to optimize for specific tasks and roles. And then you can create app for any devices that use a wide variety of control, including camera, location. Start from a sample app to showcase common business scenarios like expenses, reporting, or site inspection. It's true, it's really a configure once, deploy everywhere approach. So everything you do in the app maker experience can be used on an Apple iPhone, on a Google phone, or an Apple tablet, a Google tablet, a Windows tablet, can be used through the browser. So you can build that app once and it's going to run everywhere. And since it's so smart, it can connect to the phone accelerometer, the GPS, the camera, regardless of the manufacturer, without having you to change anything about it. Very easy to build, very quick to do. So, let's learn the basic elements of a Power App. So Power Apps has many different components to build solutions, including screens, input, galleries, forms, and a lot more. So let's review some of the most common elements you will need to get started. There's the Power App Studio. This is where you will build your app. There's app format that you can choose if you want something Excel perfect for a specific screen size like a phone or a tablet. There's galleries. This is basically lists. There's forms where you can read or input data. There's input control where you can interact with toggles and switches. There's intelligent controls that uses camera maybe for recognizing a form or an image. And finally, you got functions when it's time to do something that cannot be achieved with drag and drop. You can use a function to do that. So the Power App Studio is where everything is built. And if you look at it, it's very similar from the experience you have in PowerPoint or Excel. On the left-hand side, you have all the screens of your app. At the top, you have this format bar and you have a formula bar just underneath, just like you would find in Excel. And on the right pane, you have all the advanced features. So when you are in a Maker Studio, you can build a Canvas app there and input all the controls that you need to build your app. And we're going to see those a little later when we start building. And then just before you get to the studio, you will be asked to choose a size for your app. In this case, you can go pixel perfect for a tablet or a phone. But remember, we now have responsive templates with different containers that will change position and always be optimized for the device size that you use. So you will start to use less and less of the defined screen size and use more and more of those responsive containers. Then you have templates. This is where you can get started very quickly because those templates work where you work. Power Apps is connected natively to Office 365. It's easy for you to say, hey, we want to have a meeting capture app so we can assign tasks to anybody during meetings. We want to do leave requests and it knows the manager who should approve. You can start for any template that is around Office 365, and some of them are for product showcase or field service. You can start to build your solution with those apps. Or you can just retro-engineer them and use cool components in your own app as you wish. All those templates are there to help you learn or get started quicker with Power Apps. Then, when you build your app, you got some forms. Forms will allow you to view, create, or edit a record. And those forms are built right from your data. So if you say, hey, I have an Excel spreadsheet, it's going to look at all the rows and put all the different columns as a form field that you can interact with. Same thing, you start from a SharePoint lists or even the Dataverse. Everything is built for you to get started faster. And most of the time when you start from your data, it's going to build the first 3 screens of your app that are the most commonly used functions. Then there's input controls, because not everything should be text. Sometimes it's much faster to have a button, a drop down, a date picker, or a toggle. You can put those anywhere in your app, and you can change those toggles based on what it does in the data sources. And many of those input controls will be inherited from the data source. So if you've built your Dataverse with toggles and switches or drop-down menus, automatically this control type will be put into your app. It works the same with SharePoint. So you don't have to change that to represent how it should work in your data sources. And remember, when we build from the bottom up, all those business rules and controls are shared with the UX experience natively. Now, when we talk about intelligent controls, we mostly talk about artificial intelligence. You can use receipt scanner. You can also use document scanners to have OCR, object detectors for pictures, and it's going to give you the count of different items you have. And all of those artificial intelligent models can be programmed natively without code. It's basically just uploading images. Just tag the images to tell the system what it is. And then every time it sees that item again, it's going to be able to tell you, hey, there's 3 oranges in your picture. If you look at the Power Apps PL-900 certification or the virtual training days, you're going to learn how to build those. Now, not everything can be done through drag and drop. Otherwise, it would be pretty limiting. This is why we brought functions. So the formula combines many elements. You can have functions that take parameters, perform an operation, and return a value. So for example, if you use SQRT25, it returns 5. Functions are modeled after Microsoft Excel functions, and some functions have side effects such as submit form, which are appropriate only when a behavior formula such as button on select. So you can either use those formulas to perform tasks within your form and do some basic calculation, just like you would do an Excel formula, or you can use those functions as behavior of your app to say, hey, show me something about that user, or submit this form when I save that record or when I do an onSelect. But you can also use signals to return information about the environment. For example, location will return the device's current GPS coordinate. Signals don't take parameters or have side effects. And among those signals, you will have the accelerometer, the gyroscope of your phone, and it also super useful when you want to look at different things in mixed reality. And then another type of formula can be an enumeration. So it will return a predefined constant value. For example, color is an enumeration that has a predefined value for color.red or color.blue and so forth. Common enumerations are included here. Function-specific enumerations are described with the function. And finally, you can have name operators such as this item or parent to provide access to information from within a container. So if you're using the user database and you say this user picture, it's going to show you the picture in the Active Directory of that user, or this user name. And again, it's going to return the name of that user. So all of those things are very flexible, very powerful. They're all documented on docs.microsoft.com. But these are evolving in a new language that we call PowerFX. PowerFX will allow you to have more rich expressions that are available now in Power Apps, but will apply to the rest of the Power Platform over time. And those PowerFX language can also be used by pro developers in the tools they use every day. And PowerFX is open source. So when we have multiple companies building components for the Power Platform, or you want to save your app in a full language, PowerFX will allow you to do those things as well. Now, enough talking, let's start building. The first thing that we want to do here is to go to powerapps.com. But you can also do the same result simply by going to your Office portal. And if you see here Power Apps, it's going to be right there. If you don't see Power App, you can click on All Apps, and all the features that you are entitled to will appear right here. So let's get back to our Power Apps here. The first thing I want to show you once you're in Power Apps portal are the following. On the left here, you have the quick navigation items. So you can go to the home. You can look at learn.powerapps.com, where you have journeys to help you get to your certification or learn certain role-specific path. Then also the apps that you have. You can create a new app and also connect to your data, organize your flows. But because the Power Platform is so comprehensive, you can also build your chatbots and build your artificial intelligence model right from the home screen. So you do not need to know all the URLs of all the features of the Power Platform. They're right there at your fingertips. And once you're at the home, we want to help you get started. So you can get started from your data, like SharePoint, Excel Online, SQL Server, Dataverse, and also many other data sources. Or start from blank. If you feel you have all the inspiration you need, start from either building a Canvas app, a model-driven app, or a portal. And finally, we want to give you all the knowledge you need to get started on all of those things, so you can start from any level. And finally, you're going to see all the apps that are in this environment. We're not going to go too deep into environment. We covered that earlier in the last module. But when you want to change from environment, given that you have access to them, you can switch here from the environment switcher, and then you can select the environment that you want to work with. Every tenant comes with a default environment, but sometimes for development, UAT prod, or for geographical reasons, or for business reason, you will have different environments available to you. In this case, since we're going to be using Office 365, we don't need advanced connectors. We're going to stay in the default environment. Now, we want to build an app from our data. And my data today for the inspection app that I want to build lives in OneDrive. I could start from an app from blank, but I'm a bit lazy. I want Power Apps to work for me. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to click on Other Data Sources, and it's going to offer me various connectors to start from. I've used OneDrive and SharePoint before, so they're available here. But if I want to create a new connection to another service, it's available right here at my fingertips. But today, we start with OneDrive for Business. Because it knows who I am, remember, everything is connected through Office 365. I don't have to sign in. I'm already signed in. So I just need to find my folder where my documents are. In this case, I'm going to select the Virtual Training Day folder. And then I can see files here. I got my folder where my pictures are, and I have an Excel spreadsheet for the site tracking that I want to do for inspection. Since this spreadsheet has a table built in it, so you can take data and convert it to a table, I can select the table that will be necessary for myself. And by doing so, all the data will already be pre-matched to say, hey, these are rows, these are columns, so it should be records and fields. And by selecting this site inspector table and clicking connect here at the bottom right corner, it's going to assemble my first 3 screens app. And what it's doing, it's interpreting that spreadsheet to say, hey, this should be the way you look at lists. This should be a way to look at the records. And this is how you should be able to edit those records. And it's already done. So let's look at how the app was built for me. The first thing is, and we covered that a little earlier, when you look at the top here, looks very much like all the other Office 365 products like Excel or PowerPoint, so I can use home inserts and change themings, formatting, and whatnot. And then I have all the formulas that I can type here just like in Excel. And I can choose here which area of my app I want this formula to work on. And then again, just like PowerPoint, I have here the list of my screens. So I have the browse screen, which is this screen here, but I also have a detail screen. When I click on a record, it shows me a detailed view of it. And I have the edit screen that will allow me to, well, change data or create new data. And when I am in one of those basic components, I can expand them and I see all the different elements in my app that I can change formatting and whatnot. When I move to the right, this is where I'm going to have the advanced feature for that app. So I can change icons. I can also change the display mode of my app and also have a more granular control of how things will be displayed. So let's start very quickly with our browse screen. When you want to change a browse screen, you can select the first element of the gallery. So a gallery is a list of items that you can scroll through. In this case, we don't have a lot of records. And you can select an element and start formatting that element. And the changes that you build in that sequence will then be reflected to all the other elements. So you only have to change the first row and automatically all the other rows will know what to be formatted to look like. In this example, I have pictures that are vertical and horizontal, and I want them to be, taking better use of the space. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come here in the right corner and I'm going to change the image position. So instead of being to fit, I'm going to use the fill. And then you'll see in the middle here, all the pictures that are vertical or are centered. Much easier, much more pleasing to the eye. And in 2021, everybody likes to have things rounded. So I'm going to use a 180 here to make my picture round. And then I can select this element here and I can change what it's telling me. Maybe I don't want it to show me the address. Maybe I want the building name. So when I go back to my gallery here, I can choose the different fields. So I'm selecting gallery here on the left. So the entire element is selected and then I can choose the fields I want to be displayed just by clicking here. And in the first one, maybe I want to have, this is the description. We have the photo, city, and instead of address, maybe I want to have building name. So then I can come here and I should have a title. Then I have the building name. Just like that, because it knows where to search for the data, it can reformat that automatically. And again, if you want to change the way that the text looks like, you want to make it bigger or smaller or change the alignment, it works the exact same way as you would expect in any other Office solution. But let's say we want to change the look and feel of my app. I can come into the theme section and then I can select different colors. I can make it closer to my company branding if I want to get something a little more in the dark, or I can just select a blue Office look and feel. But maybe what I want to do now is to allow my users to feel a little more engaged when they log in. So I can create a new screen that's going to be a blank screen and simply have this screen at the top. So I'm just going to pop it to the top here. And just like a PowerPoint, by the virtue of the fact that this is going to be the first screen in line, this is where it's tell the app show that screen whenever the app is launched. And then I could change a background picture. I can add an image file, and then I can come here and say, you know what, let's just look at the different pictures and put this one here that I took a few years ago. And again, I want this picture to be filled. And then I can add my company logo. So I can come to Insert. I'm going to select the media. I'm going to select Image. And then I can come here again and say, hey, you know what? I want you to add the Microsoft logo. So I should have the Microsoft logo here somewhere. Let's take the Power Apps logo. And you're going to see that it preserved the alpha transparency, so you can make your app look half decent. But what if I wanted to have an app that is also greeting the user when he logs in? I'll do the same thing. I'm going to enter media. I'm going to use the same image control, but instead of telling it which image it should use, I can make it dynamic. And simply by telling my formula here, user, and I can have image. And by having the image, it's going to pull that image from Office 365 and put it there. And again, if I want to make it look a little more in the 2020s, I want to make it round. And you know what? It does the same with text. So if I want to add a text box or add a label, I just come here. And then I can put the username in there. So user and full name. And it's a little dark in here. So let's put it into white and make it look way bigger. So just like you would do in PowerPoint, you can come here, change the color. You want to make it maybe centered. And you want to make it bigger. There you go. Super easy, no line of code. And if you have a little talent with PowerPoint, it's going to be super easy for you to build nice looking apps without a single line of code. So now, we saw how we can look at our different data sources from Power Apps directly. What now can we do with the different formulas? Let's take a look. So, by the way, if you want to reproduce this app, we're going to provide the link in the description so you can follow this lab end to end, and all the components that are there, the images of the buildings and the description, the Excel spreadsheets are provided again. Super easy to get started with. Now, let's talk about functions for a second. Those formulas that we saw, right? We talk about what we can do with them, but we can do even further. It can interact with the data in the context of your app screen and who's using the app. So there's a common functions and a bit of an explanation of what they do. For instance, if you use the filter, this function is often used with galleries or tables of data to narrow down the records returned from your data source. So for instance, if you want to do inspections, you can say only show me inspection for a specific city. So you won't have to get like thousands of inspection, maybe you only need a few dozens. You do this by specifying one or more columns in your data set to perform a logic test on, which will allow you to return the data that falls in a certain date range. It has a set value or was created by the user, for example. Again, either base show me the inspections to do tomorrow in this location, which I am the inspector. All of those things will fall in the category of a filter, and then your list will only show those records. Also, you can do a match formula. So this function will allow you to check a value to see if it follows a given pattern. You can use this to check if the user entered properly formatted email address in the input field, and if they did not show them a warning that a valid email is required. This function serves well for conditional formatting. So again, if you did not put all those business rules at the source, sometimes it happens when you build a Power Apps over a legacy system and you want to make sure there is some data consistency, you can put that into a match formula that will save you time. But if you do a new use case, I strongly recommend that you use the Dataverse or the Common Data Service, and you can put those business rules right in there, and then the user doesn't have to think about it. It's done automatically because a data source is built in that way. Then there's distinct. So this is a function that allows you to return the unique values from a list of data. So it makes it easier to build a dynamic dropdowns that show users only the valid values for a given field. So if you have to build territories, province, county, then city, and then only filter down the list of choices that are part of that county, you only have a certain amount of cities, or a province, it's the same idea. So you can use that to make to shorten the amount of information in a dropdown specific to locations, dates, or whatever. And also you can do basic math. So Power Apps will include a range of math formulas for working with your data, from the simple such as sum or average, or complex like ATAN or SIN, to work with radians. So if you have graphs and you need very specific formulas to get a result on an inspection or quality control, you can put those formulas in. Again, if you use the Dataverse, you can put them in Dataverse, but if you work over an Excel spreadsheet or a SharePoint that you did not put those formulas in, you can put them at the UI layer, and you don't need to develop them with code. You can just use basic Excel formulas, basically, to make them work for you. Now, once you've built an app, how do you share it? How will people access those apps? Well, you can follow me with this exercise on how you're going to do it, but let me show you first. So let's go back to the app that we were building just earlier. When we build the app, as long as you start to put some features in them, you might want to use the play button here to start testing your app. And then when you're done, you're going to press File. And then here, you're going to give it a name. We're going to give it a name, VTD Inspection. Okay. Then we're going to save our app. And by the way, there's versioning that is already included in it. So each time you save, it's a new version, and you have the capability to roll back to another version if you do something wrong. Then you see here the button Share. This is where you'll be able to say, hey, all of those different people will be able to use my app. So when you click Share, there's a few things that's going to happen here. The first one is telling you what kind of sharing rights you want to give with that app. So for instance, here I can say, hey, I want to share this app with my colleague, Mikhail. Oh, he's not there. Let's just go with Dan there. So Dan is a user. And here on the right, I can do a few things. I can say that Dan will be a co-owner. And he will now be able to edit the app if I'm not there, or we can work together on the same app, right? So the day I win the lottery and I leave the organization, at least the app will not be left alone. Also, you have to make sure that that person, that Dan in this case, has access to Excel and OneDrive. Because if you give access to the app, it doesn't necessarily grant access to the data. And this comes back to when we were talking about role-based access control. You cannot use an app to circumvent rights on data that you should not already have access to. So as an app maker, it's my job to make sure that when I build an app, I also share the data sources that are associated to it, either from the Dataverse and Excel or OneDrive. Those are built in, so when it's Office 365, it's fair game. It's easy for me to share with them. But if it was something more sophisticated, like a SQL database, then I might need to go with my IT team and tell them, hey, these person will need to have access to that SQL data. So once I shared my app, people will be able to use that app by downloading the Power Apps app from the Google Store or the Apple Play Store. They don't install the app directly. They have to download this app first that becomes a player, just like you would install Word or Excel on your mobile device. But by installing Power Apps, then within this app, people will be able to see all the Power Apps that are shared with them, that they have access to. Let's take a look at how it feels like on the phone. So here I have my phone, and I see a list of apps that are shared with me. And part of those apps are listed there. You can change the icons and names. And at the bottom, we see the app that is about our inspections, that's the app that we just built. And then once you share that app, users can have access to them. And you can see here that the first screen does not allow me to do much because I did not add a button to it. And this is a good idea because it's so quick to go from your maker experience to your app. Whenever you see a problem, you can always go back to the maker experience and make changes. So we see here that it's easy to launch the app, it's easy to install, but right now the app doesn't do nothing. So here, let's close our app, go back to our maker experience, make some changes, and then make sure that it works on the device. So I'm back to my app here. And the one thing I need to do is to say insert a button. That button is already using the theming I've selected earlier. I can call that button go to my inspection and make it a little more, a little bigger here. I'm no graphic designer. I'm pretty sure most of you are better than I am. And then once I created my button, I can say, you know what? I'm going to insert an action to navigate, right? So I went to action here at the top, and I'm going to use navigate. And by clicking on navigate, I'm going to be able to say, hey, go to browse screen and use the transition fade, just like I would use transition in a PowerPoint. Again, super simple, right? And I can also use the cover, different types of transition. But you do not have to publish your app to actually test it. You can simply come here, press the play button, and then it's gonna work just like it would on your mobile device. And then you can look at your list here, you can select that record, you can edit that record, and then you can call it Bellevue Street West, for example. It would work just the same way as you would do in an app. So it's very easy for you to build your app and test it before you share it. And if you do share it and there's a problem, very easy. You just do what we did here. You come back, you make the save, and then this app will now be shared with everybody. And remember when I said you can roll back to a version if you do something wrong? All the versions are here. And when you click on them, you can see all the history of your version and go back to your version 1 if you need to. So, this is a very quick overview on how you can build Power Apps in a Office 365 environment. You can do those apps on Excel spreadsheets, on SharePoint lists, on your calendar items. Very easy to do. And then when it's time to share those apps, you can share with individuals, groups of people, or even the entire organization. I hope that you've learned a thing or two. But in the next module, we're going to work around automation. All right, this is the fourth module, and it's going to be everything about Power Automate. I'm super excited because in the last few years, I've been spending more and more time with this amazing product, helping organizations to transform processes and bridge gaps between old system and new systems. So in this module, we will learn a few things together. The first one is how Power Automate is built and how you can use those features as a pro developer or as a citizen developer. Then we're going to create a flow from a template. We'll even create flows triggered by the Dataverse. We'll automate approvals and use the Approval Center. So buckle up. We're just getting started. So what is Power Automate? So Power Automate has a few capabilities that help you solve different scenarios. You can automate repetitive tasks like moving data from one system to another. You can guide users through a process so they can complete at different stages. It allows you to connect external data sources via one of the hundreds of connectors or directly via an API. And you can automate desktop-based processes with robotic process automation or RPA capabilities. And this is important because when we think of automation, it's not an island. Automation can be very complex. Things can happen in the cloud, but can also happen on your desktop. And when you have to convert files in different formats, it is a very low skill task, but very time consuming. So whenever you have a chance to automate those things, and even better, connect them together, this is a very powerful toolbox. Now, Power Automate allows you to automate at scale because you can efficiently scale automation across your organization. Because it's citizen developer, you can allow everybody in your organization to automate workflows using their favorite on-premises or cloud-based apps and services. And for end users, professional developers to IT. But that would not be enough if it's not secure. So you can securely integrate automation at every level and use confidentiality to enable end users to build automated workflows in a secured, compliant manner and focus on your skilled IT resources on more complex strategic work like building custom connectors. You can accelerate productivity and focus on more strategic work by minimizing repetitive, manual, time-consuming tasks and create more time for your teams to focus on strategic work with easy-to-use, low-code tools, templates, and connectors. But the most important part in all of this is that you can increase efficiency through automated workflows with the power of artificial intelligence. Because you can streamline how you work by combining the power of AI with automated workflows and business processes. And this is a huge deal because once you capture data from an API and maybe repeat tasks on a desktop, there's a very important gap in decision making, in making the right automation in the right conditions. And this is where AI can absolutely augment your business processes by understanding not only the content, but some of the context around an automation. Oh, this is an invoice, and this is what an invoice should look like. And this is the important information I can capture and then enter it into another system. So it's more than just capturing OCR, it's understanding the entire template. But you can also do that with images, with natural language. So when you bring that into automation, it's a very efficient tool. Now, you can scale automation efficiently with Power Automate because you have thousands of pre-built templates and tailored automation. You can automate across your favorite apps and services. There's over 450 connectors that you can use that are off the shelf. And about a third of them might be with Microsoft services and AI, but the rest is non-Microsoft services like Salesforce, SAP, Zendesk, or Twitter. It integrates with the Microsoft ecosystem. In fact, Power Automate is built within Azure, Microsoft 365, and Dynamics. So not only it's easy for you to build automation with the Power Automate portal, but when it's time to invoke automation from an Excel spreadsheet or from an opportunity in your CRM, you can do that out of the box. And lastly, it can connect to on-premises data and also in the cloud. Because it uses the on-premises data gateway, you can connect to stuff like SAP and Oracle and automate the rest with your emails or your CRM. So all of this allow people with different skills in your organization to automate things, bridging those gaps between API-based automation and legacy systems. Now, here's an example on how you can do a purchase order approval. So approvals are a great place to build in Power Automate because they're often defined, but they're still manual. Or sometimes with approval, you have to approve everything in different systems. You have your travel expenses in one system for your team, and then you have vacation requests in another system, and maybe a discount for a client in another system. So as a manager, being able to not only build appropriation workflow more efficiently, but being able to approve everything from a single place is a huge time saving. So then a user can start the process by going into Power Apps and creating a purchase order request. So once they submit the request, the information is sent to a Power Automate flow. The flow can be built to evaluate the request and then route the request based on criteria such as submitting user and the requested amount. The first action could be to send the request to the user's manager, and the manager could be automatically retrieved from Azure AD, avoiding prompting for duplicate information. Because Power Automate lives within Office 365, all of that company or organization mapping that you've created can be leveraged in AD automation. So we know who you are, your coworkers based on teams. We know who your manager is. And all of those information are pervasive throughout the Power Platform. And it is super useful when we're talking about approvals. So Power Automate works by creating flows, of which there are 3 different types. You can have cloud flows, which are instant, automated, or scheduled. Cloudflow uses APIs most of the time, using those 450 connectors that are existing out of the box, or with custom connectors. Then there's business process flow, which allow a user to follow steps or stages in the process. It looks like business process management if you're familiar with this type of tools. And you have desktop flows or robotic process automation that will simulate the interaction the user will have with a computer by moving the mouse and clicking and entering data. Then you can add artificial intelligence to your flow without writing any line of code. So to take advantage of these AI capabilities, you must first build a model with AI Builder. You can go to flow.microsoft.com and then follow a wizard that will guide you through building and training the model. Currently, there are 4 available AI model categories available to build out of. You can do forms processing, so it will extract text from an uploaded images or PDF. There's also object detector, so it will identify object from an uploaded image or taken photo and then provide a count of the number of objects that are present. There's prediction, and there's text classification. These are only 4 of the standard models, but each of those models can be tailored to your needs. You can now do forms processing with expenses or with receipts. You can do validation of passports. So all of those pre-trained models are available to you. And you can also build some custom models to suit your specific needs. Now let's take a look at how TrueGreen was able to automate their customer satisfaction process using Power Virtual Agents and Power Automate.
One of the values that we pride ourselves on here in TrueGreen is our statement, live life outside. We take this to heart. And the only way for us to do that is to be genuine about it, in the quality and in the timeliness of the service that we provide. And for us, we had to put our customers right in the center of this conversation. A lot of companies are looking into how to improve their consumers' experience. And for us, when we started looking at our transformation, we couldn't ignore technology. And that's where Microsoft came to play. They are truly genuine about the desire to transform consumer experience for companies like us. So it was a great partnership, and it gave me a ton of confidence that I can go through that journey. We have 2.4 million plus customers. They want to interact with us on a channel and time of their choice. And we were able to arrive to how we can architect that experience with Microsoft Power Virtual Agent. It made it very easy for us. The Microsoft team spent a full week with us just to onboard some of my resources and educate them on the platform. Literally 2 days later, we have an innovative chatbot. And the Power Virtual Agent is really beyond the traditional chatbot. We will use it to orchestrate entire customer experiences end to end. I can schedule my service, reschedule a service, add a new service, do a payment, get some tips about how you care for your lawn. We wanted to have the right foundation for technology. That's why we're looking at machine learning and AI to analyze the tons of data that we're capturing and take actions based on that. We're looking into the optical image recognition, which would allow the virtual agent powered by AI to troubleshoot and then schedule a service agent. And we were able to use UI flows to integrate our legacy solutions with the new solutions that we're deploying. It's actually allowing us to grow faster because it definitely bridged that gap for us. The reality is Microsoft made these ideas easy for us to implement. We are not a technology company. I want my team to focus on doing what matters to our business and to the customers. Our ambition is that whenever you talk about your lawn care, whenever you talk about living life outside, you think by default TrueGreen. And we're doing everything in terms of transformation to earn that position.
It's pretty cool to see how TrueGreen was able to automate many parts of their customer service processes with Power Virtual Agents and Power Automate. But the best place to start to build your own processes is with templates. You have thousands of templates to choose from, and you can find those templates directly in Power Automate. You don't need to navigate away from this. So let's see how you can start building simple automation and also how you can automate approval processes all within Power Automate.
Now that you've learned about Power Automate and how you can use it to automate your repetitive processes, this video will guide you through your different options for getting started. As we walk through the various options in Power Automate, think about not only the workflows you can build, but how you can take advantage of the hundreds of connectors and their triggers and actions to drive business value with a no-code or low-code solution. To get started, let's navigate to flow.microsoft.com in your browser. This is the home of Power Automate and provides you all the resources and capabilities you need to get started. After a few seconds, you're brought to this screen where you have different options for getting started. And let's begin by starting from a template. So down here, there are several different templates available that are pre-packaged for you to provide the functionality where you just enter the inputs of the data you want to work with, and it goes from there. You can either browse through the list of templates, you can search them by the different types of templates, or you can search by a keyword or a connector. So in this case, let's type in Microsoft Forms and see what options we have. After a brief moment, we're presented here with lots of different pre-configured templates using the Microsoft Forms connectors. So we can see like recording our responses into SharePoint, sending emails to the responders, or other additional options. And let's go down here and maybe we want to take advantage of one of the more complex ones so we can see what the things look like in action. To do that, we'll look at the Approve a Microsoft Forms response to add a row to an Excel spreadsheet. So we're going to click on the template. This then brings you to a screen that loads the additional information about what this particular template does. And if you scroll down to the bottom, then you have the different connections that it will use. If you've not previously used these connectors, you'll be prompted to sign in, but we have. So in this case, we can click Continue. And now we have a complete flow where we just walk through and we've configured the options. So we would choose the form from the list of forms we've previously created in Microsoft Forms. Then we would connect that in. We would then have an approval process, right, to prompt to accept this approval. Here we can configure things like what is the information that goes out, who's it go to, so we could send it to always to ourselves, we could send it to our manager. We have different options here we can take advantage of. And then we get into the conditional logic of a flow. And so if the response is equal to approve, so if that is yes, then we have the ability to add a row into a table. So we would then choose the Excel file that we want and then send an email approval. Or we can scroll back up here, and if we have a no scenario, then we can send a simple email saying your response was not accepted. This gives you complete flexibility in your solution, and this is a great framework to get started. So if you wanted to add additional steps, maybe logging to another data source like the Common Data Service, looking up the user's manager, or even sending out a tweet based on this response, all of these are available to you thanks to the rich connections and the easy-to-use interface in Power Automate. You just come in simply, hover here, and say insert a new step, add an action, and now you can choose your action. And then once you choose your action, such as Microsoft Teams, then you can see you have the ability to post a message, for example. So Great way to take one of these template apps and extend it and use it for your scenario. To look at additional ways to create flows, click on the Create button on the left again. Now at the top, you can see that there's 3 ways to make a flow where you can start from blank. And so creating an automated flow, an instant flow, or a scheduled flow, these are still your standard types of flows like you just looked at creating the template. These are just starting you with different triggers. An automated flow would be one where data has changed. So maybe you got an email in your inbox, some data changed in a common data service or on your SharePoint site, and you want to then have that trigger or cause your flow to take action. That would be an automated flow. An instant flow, this is one where you press a button. This could be a physical button like a flick. This could be a virtual button like in the Flow Management app or in Power Apps. So having the user press a button that then causes your flow to go and run. And then finally, you can set flows to run on a schedule. So maybe that's every morning at 8 a.m. Maybe that's the first day of the month. Maybe that's every 15 minutes. You have the ability to set different occurrence schedules for that. In addition, you can create a business process flow. Business process flows are the ones that run on top of your common data service, and are often used with model-driven apps to help guide the user through the process. So that way, when you onboard a new customer, you can guide them through the various steps and stages of the process along the way. You are now ready to use Power Automate to build your first flow without writing a single line of code. What business process will you automate first?
So now that we saw how we can build API automation using cloud flows, let's delve deeper into what a business process flow is. Because sometimes you need a human in the loop to help you achieve tasks, either with people working together across multiple stages, entering data, or also trigger automation at different steps of their process. So you see here we have how long this process was active, and then the user could actually run through many fields directly into the process itself without having to navigate further in the page. And you see that when we switch about an hour ago, the information is already set active here. And then we can select a few information, but you see here, I cannot move to the next stage unless the review ideas is completed. Then I can close. I can move to the next stage and award the issue and close a challenge and finish my process. And once it's finished, I have my little flag here that tells me everything that has been done. These are much easier to build than you might think. I have a few flows that are already existing, that are out of the box to automate certain tasks, but we're going to create a new one for our system. So here we're going to call it Risk Report Progress. Okay. And then it's time to choose the entity. I'm going to use the risk reports. It's already all connected to CDS, so it's very fast to get the information back directly without creating new connections or whatever. And now we're going to be in the same kind of idea we had with business processes, with business rules, like we have stages and we have different actions. So now let's just put some stages in line. I know I'm thinking about 4 stages will probably do the job. I like to lay out all my stages before I start putting steps in them. Then you can work differently if you have other preferences. My first stage will be called, if you remember, reported. Here we had under investigation. We had assigned to be resolved. And we had resolved. There's a cool thing with business process flow that business rules don't do. While a business rules must be to a one single entity, a business process flow can actually work across any entity. So it's going to be very easy to transition, let's say, from a risk report and then move to a child entity of the risk report, let's say the investigation or the actions to fix the problem. And then when we move back, go back to our process, which is the risk report itself. This is where you can do it with branching, but you don't have to. It can be the same process, but you can move from many different entities within the same process. And the category here was mostly using for Dynamics 365, where it allows you to use different visualization for a pipe, for example. Okay. So we did all of our steps, our stages, sorry. Now it's time to add a few steps. So in the first area here, there's always like the first data step. We're just going to put like the name of the report that was created. So name. So these are again all the fields from CDS. It's important you click apply before you move to another step. And then I can have like a different steps here. I'm going to use the risk type. A little quick tips here is that if you go directly to the field, it's going to name it automatically. So it saves you a little time there, right? And we can make this field required before we move to the next stage. So even if it's not required in the CDS, I can make it required in my stage. So it needs to be filled before moving to the next one. And then we can add a few more steps here that will be there and a report number. Again, I usually type it because it's like the first field, but if you're smart, you're going to be going directly in there and it's going to do it automatically for you. Now that I created that, let's add a few more steps in our risk report under investigation. So the first step will be description, apply, and then I'm going to add another data step here. That's going to be the urgent or not urgent. Like I said, this is something that might come a little later in the process. Here we're going to work with the building manager. But we didn't enter the building manager field directly in our form, so that's why it doesn't show here. And in the risk resolved here, we're just going to have our risk status so we can close it when we need. I'm just going to use the risk status. Here we go. So now I created my business process. It will be interesting to see if it is urgent that we said here in the under investigation. I might want to add an extra step. So I'm going to add a condition here, and my condition will fit right between those two processes. Okay. So if the condition on the field urgent equals yes, apply. I might want to insert another stage that's going to be here. That's going to say contact like a hospital, or fill a specific report that will be there. All right. And then my other field might be just come back here. If it's not, just go to this field, and this field report here will be resolved. I can add it to my branch here. Whoops, my mouse doesn't want to cooperate anymore. So then you can have different fields here. So if it's a risk report, I'm going to come here, and then you can work with different conditions and splits in your business process. Now, once you're done, you save your process. Always a good idea to give it a name. So to change the name, you remember we just click here at the top. We gave it a name when we started in this case. We can validate. It's going to tell us if there's error in our logic, which is the case here. Oh, we didn't save a data step here. So risk report contact hospital. So we're just going to have just a description. We didn't create a field specific to the hospital part. But you see that it's hard to make mistakes because the system will make sure that you don't. And then we can activate. And also the other important part when you talk about business processes is that some business processes might be only available for certain type of users using their security roles. So maybe the Person who declares the risk doesn't need to see the full process, but the building manager might need to. But this is it. This is as simple as this. We've created our business process flow using the editor here. So we've seen together how we can build different types of processes with Power Automate. So we have those cloud flows that helps you automate everything with connectors and APIs. We have business process flows that help you to move from stages to stages and to steps and put those directly into model-driven apps or to use them as a standalone. We will soon have more module on how you can build desktop flows that allows you to do robotic process automation in both attended and unattended mode. But for now, what we saw is that Microsoft Power Automate allows you to bring automation to your business processes. So with a different type of flow to cover different processes, plus the ability to connect to data from hundreds of data sources, only with a few clicks. Because Power Automate affords great flexibility. All it takes to get started is knowledge of your business process. So to recap, Power Automate is a web-based service for automating your business processes. It has different offerings to meet your needs, event-driven flows, business process flows, and desktop flows. Each have their own unique properties. Power Automate has hundreds of templates that combine actions and triggers from connectors to create workflows useful for any business scenario. Your automation can save your business a lot of time and energy that you spent on repetitive tasks and make your business run more smoothly. Power Automate Approval Center allows users to easily see and manage approval from a variety of flows to ensure ease of use and efficiency. So let's start our last module with Power BI. Power BI is certainly the more mature tool of the Power Platform. It is best of breed in every analyst's magic corner or magic wave, and it's one of the more powerful tools we have for data analytics. So in this module, we will explore, understand, and learn about Power BI. So we will describe the business value and features. We will see how Power BI works and looks from a user's perspective. And we're going to learn how to build a simple dashboard, learning how to connect to data in Power BI desktop, transform and model the data you import, do some basic visualization, create and share dashboards, and discover how to collaborate with Power BI. So first of all, let's do a quick introduction of what is Power BI. At the core, Power BI is a self-service platform that helps you discover, analyze, and visualize data in order to share and collaborate insights with your colleagues. Visualizations are interactive and scalable reports based on collections of different data sources. So all of those data sources that are sometimes huge millions of records coming from your marketing systems, Access databases, Excel spreadsheets, or data lake can now have a visual layer to help you do better analytics on that data. So you can get data from Excel files, databases, Azure data, app source, but also it has out-of-the-box connectivity to Dynamics 365 and all their SaaS providers like Salesforce, Facebook, Google Analytics, and other SaaS services. So the Power BI editor is something that you install on your desktop, and then you can connect to data sources, transform those data sources, assemble all your reports and dashboard before you publish them on the Power BI service. So you see those Power BI tools, you have the desktop, you have the service that is online so people can actually view and interact with data, but also pulling from the Power BI services, you have the Power BI mobile app. But lots of data still require top of the game security and administration capabilities. So from the security perspective, similar to many Microsoft services, Power BI is built on Azure, which is Microsoft cloud computing infrastructure and platform that ensures the same level of security. User log in their They log in with their credentials that is held in Azure Active Directory, and it controls the level of sharing for every report, data, or dashboard, determining whether recipient can edit or only view items. So Power BI administration is the management of a Power BI tenant, including the configuration of governance policies, usage monitoring, and provisioning of licenses, capacities, and organizational resources. It's important to understand that with Power BI, end users do not gain more access to data they shouldn't have access to, especially when you use out-of-the-box tools like in Power Apps and or Dynamics 365. And that Power BI capacity is always secured so it doesn't leak outside of your organization. So you don't create easy to share dashboard outside your organization if those users don't have that permission. So the idea is to transform data into insight. And there's a few steps to get there. You start by getting your data, you analyze, you visualize your data, you publish, and you collaborate. And most of the work is done in Power BI, the desktop version. And then you can build your dashboards in only a few minutes to get to visualization, finding the graph that you like, and then adding insight. So there's artificial intelligence that is added to Power BI to help you find information within the data. That is especially useful with large scale of data. And then it also integrates with Cortana. So you can ask Cortana for, hey, what's my monthly revenue with this business department? So all of that integrates natively with Cortana. You can also insert custom visualization. So if you do have lots of IoT sensors on your production line or on your plane engine, you can map those KPIs that receive from IoT on custom visualization so you can troubleshoot more effectively. And then you can publish to the web. So those Power BI dashboards with the right security control can be shared on Power Portals and or any other websites. And then there's integration with every Microsoft apps and services. So you can embed Power BI visualization into your Power Apps, invoke Power BI from Excel spreadsheets, but also just transform spreadsheets directly into Power BI visualizations. And then there's Power BI Mobile that not only allow you to visualize some data, but there's still data interactivity directly on the mobile app. So where you're on the go and you want to have those sales report and being able to quickly tell the team, hey, we need to focus on a certain metric, this is at your fingertip on your mobile device. But everything starts from the desktop. So the discovery and exploration, the authoring, the custom visualization, and even integration to big data tools like R are done through Power BI Desktop. So you can connect to all the data around you. So you can connect to data in the cloud, on premises. You can shape, transform, and clean data using the same tool. So you don't need to have another set of tools just to do basic data manipulation. All of that is done within Power BI Desktop. And then you can join and model your data from multiple sources or type. So you can have multiple data sources, let's say your asset master data management plus your IoT data and your CRM data. And then you can bring all of that into a single Power BI dashboard to know what's wrong with a certain client device. And finally, you can extend with advanced analytics and even do predictive model using R. You can quickly publish to Power BI from Power BI Desktop, but also from Excel directly. And this provides always powerful self-service analysis. So Power BI Desktop, you got the visual drag and drop and exploration, and you got Excel to build some ad hoc analysis for blending structured and unstructured data. So let's see how the Miami Heat, the basketball team on the NBA, was able to boost their season's ticket sales by 30% and saves approximately $1 million on operations.
We make people happy, whether it's a little kid coming to their first game or seasoned folks that have been coming for years. The smiles on their faces when big plays happen, when the act first gets on stage for concerts, that moment is what we live for. And that experience is powered by Adobe and Microsoft. We selected Microsoft because there's no other place where we can go find an enterprise-capable platform to do so many different things. They provide the data warehouse, the Azure cloud, and the Power BI platform that visualizes all of this data that's really mission critical for us. Microsoft and Adobe are the backbone to our customer journey.
It was a no-brainer. The fact that they already had readily available integrations with our existing Microsoft technologies, it was a cinch to really bring it in and be able to move the data from both platforms.
We've got a lot of digital properties. We have Heat.com, AARena.com, MiamiHeatStore.com, the award-winning Miami Heat mobile app, and we want to know what our users are doing across all these different digital properties.
We use the Microsoft Azure cloud to collect and enrich our data so that we can provide it to the rest of the business in a seamless and an automated way.
First, we are scoring every lead that comes into this building, whether it's from mobile ticketing data that we capture, Wi-Fi data that we capture from Adobe Analytics or Campaign, and say, hey, this person would have a high propensity to buy a season ticket, or this person will be a great fit for a retail store buyer.
This data is moved into Microsoft Dynamics so that our reps can ensure that we are on track to drive those leads through the funnel to where we convert them into new customers.
And that's why we selected Dynamics 365 to enable our salespeople to better sell. After we implemented the data warehouse and Dynamics 365, we had a 30% year-over-year increase in our season ticket sales, with essentially the same team on the floor.
All of this information is made available through Power BI so that we can measure our performance, and it's accessible by our ownership, our executive leadership, right down to the guest services rep who's working at the arena events.
Our vision here is we just want to understand our fan. Understanding the fan provides for a great customer experience, but it's also great for our business as well. We now make data-driven decisions rather than focusing on assumptions or the way things used to be done. This has transformed the way we do business.
This is amazing. So just from visualization or knowing where your data is, you can really transform your organization with Power BI. But enough me doing the talking. Let's look at how we can build those dashboards together. So in Power BI, I have multiple options to import data, build new tables, and also have a number of visualizations that I can insert in my dashboards. And I have also drill throughs and different filters. What I did in this case, I've already imported 2 CSV files, and now I want to transform my data to have different ways of working with those numbers in my dashboards. One of the things I want to do here, I have all those columns about sales, discounts, and COGS, but I really want to create a new column directly in Power BI to be able to assess the costs of fabrications. So I can take the units sold and I can add another column and just say, hey, units sold times the manufacturing price or manufacturing cost. So I can choose another column. So just like I would do in Excel, I can still do transformation to my data before building my visualization. So at the end here, you see all that test column that I just created calculates those, does those simple arithmetic to help me find indicators that the original file might not have provided. Now, once those changes are built, I can do many other things with my data. I can create relationships if I want to connect to multiple tables. But in this case, I'm going to just hide the column that we've created. I'm not going to use it in my use case here. But what we will do is that we will start building this visualization. So I see all my data here, so I can work with that data again with all those different columns. And then I see the different sales, the COGS, so I can already have like a basic report if you want that I'm going to be able to use in my dashboard. And if I had relationships with multiple tables, then I can build those as well. And those multiple tables can come from multiple data sources. So if you have data from your ERP that are your actuals, but your CRM that are your sales, and you want to have a better assessment of the cost to acquire new clients, you can absolutely do that. But in this case, we will keep our very simple metrics working on those columns that we've already had. Now, I just choose a bar chart here, and I can select what data I want to show in that chart just by selecting them in my column box. So here I've selected the discounts, the product, the profit, the segment, and the units sold. And I already have like a basic visualization. Think of it as a pivot chart on steroids. But the cool thing is that some visualizations have some AI in them. So if I use those advanced visualization, I can see profits is more than a certain number. I can see what are the drivers of those different KPIs. So this is where it goes way beyond what you can do with Excel only. So this is a very useful way to see what are the influencer for my numbers. And it's just by selecting the chart type over the data I've already selected, it does the work for me. I'm adding another area here. So I'm just repositioning so it looks better on my report or on my dashboard. And then I'm going to be able to select another data source to fill that visual tile here. So let's use the manufacturing cost and the product. And then if we want to assess a little more of it, let's look at the sales price and profit. So then we can have, again, more ways to find insights in to help me making better decisions. And then I can move the axis. I can have one axis that is the basic data and then have a second axis that will be like a line graph, helping me, again, identifying the cost versus profits of each unit sold. And the next phase will be to share that report, or at least to publish it to the Power BI service. So then I was working all that time on my desktop, and now by publishing this to the Power BI service on the web, it's going to be accessible not only for me, but for my colleagues who have the appropriate license to visualize that data themselves. So I'm just going to save this as a Power BI file, and then I can upload that file automatically without leaving Power BI to my workspace, which is my area on the Power BI service. So if you have a workspace for marketing, another one for sales, and another one for manufacturing, you can choose where you will publish those dashboards. So while it is publishing, so it's taking all that data, putting it into the web, and then my colleagues who are part of the same workspace, when they go on the Power BI service, which is online, then they will be able to find that dashboard as we built it. But it doesn't stop there. Any user can select visualization from my dashboard that I've created and add those to their own dashboards. So if they want a more holistic view on marketing plus sales plus customer service with different tiles, they can. You see, there's nothing magical about Power BI. It's pretty simple. You just import spreadsheets, you transform your data, you rename some columns, and it's a fairly straightforward process from there to publish, visualize, collaborate directly in the Power BI service. So in summary, Power BI allows you to easily analyze, visualize, and collaborate on data. Now you can get started leveraging these capabilities to make better business decisions. Power BI Desktop is a free application for PC that lets you gather, transform, and visualize your data. Power BI Desktop also connects to many types of data sources, including local databases, worksheets, and data on cloud services. Power BI simplifies collaboration and improves the outcome by allowing you and your colleagues to work simultaneously on the same dashboards and reports. And finally, the Power BI service is built on Azure, Microsoft's cloud computing infrastructure and platform, ensuring your data is secure and only accessible by authenticated users. You see, when you put all those components together, we have Power Apps, Power Portals, Power BI, Power Automate, AI Builder, Power Virtual Agents. All of those things They talk together, helping you to build very sophisticated end-to-end solution to any business challenges that you might face.